for joining Handle Your Business with Bobby Dino. I am here with a buddy of mine, someone that I've spent a bunch of time with. His name is Mike Bolen. He's a real estate investor. What else would you call yourself, Mike?
You know, I've been a investor in real estate, and I've been involved in real estate for a really, really long time, decades. And so, you know, it's one of those things where I think some people, you know, they're new into the business or any business, and they don't always realize, you know, the dues that you pay to get where you are. A lot of people are like, well, Mike, you know, you seem like you work that hard. Well, you should have seen me 15 or 20 years ago. You know, so yeah, I made a big shift in my life about a year ago, where I kicked back a little bit from 100% focus on work and took on some more passion projects than, you know, what I would have done in years past.
Yeah, and that's, you know, Mike's essentially living the dream right now that a lot of younger people have, that they've heard from their parents. Work hard, take care of business while you're young. Then when you're older, you can do what you want to do. And that's one of the things that really kind of got me admiring Mike, in a sense. When I found out, you know, how your backstory was, I was like, wow, man. Because you don't see too many examples of that nowadays.
Well, I think a lot of people, it's a tough, you know, it's a tough way to, I should say it's really tough to build a business over many, 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 many years, and then allow that business to, you know, take care of itself and take care of you. I mean, I look at every dollar that I make, and I've looked at it like this for decades. I mean, since I was probably 15, 16 years old, every dollar that I earn, I look at it as a little soldier that has to go out and earn another dollar for me. And so those dollars, though, they go out and they make more dollars. And one of the problems that I've struggled with for a long time is enjoying the fruits of my labor. I always want to reinvest. And that's served me well, but it's also really tough to, you know, revert back from that. I don't want to be the guy that's wearing a 40-year-old sweater and worth, you know, $80 million, you know what I mean, and driving a 1992 Saturn with 300,000 miles on it. I don't want to be that guy. And so, and I kind of felt like I was starting to go in that direction. And so, yeah, like a year ago, I started making some changes in my life, and that's been really nice. I mean, this past year, we're here towards the end of 2019, and it's been quite a year. Yeah, it's been quite a year.
We were in Romania together.
Yes.
What did you think about that when you were over there?
Well, it's a little sad, really. You know, I think about it, and this is just my perspective, but it's sad because that was my first overseas trip, okay? And so here's a guy, me, that, you know, I'm in a great financial position. I flew over there on Swiss Air. I got one of the first class cabins.
It was a surprise for everybody too. It was funny because the only people that knew this were me and Tristan. And nobody else knew that Mike was coming. So Tristan's like, Bobby, you've got to totally keep it a surprise. Right? And I'm like, you know me, man, I'm not good. So Mike shows up, God, it was close to midnight or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah, and he's like, hey, you know, coming into their place, and yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's a mutual friend of ours, Andrew or Cobra Tate and Tristan Tate. They live in Bucharest, Romania. And so I had been talking to Tristan, and then I had another close friend of mine who was over there already, who didn't know I was coming, Mike Cernovich. And so they were teasing Mike about me not coming, you know, and they're like, oh, your buddy didn't come, you know, and yada, yada. And so then, yeah, I showed up, you know, at midnight or whatever it was, or 11 o'clock at night over there. And so that was a good surprise. But yeah, it was sad because in a lot of ways I had such a great time over there, and I enjoyed it so much, and I got so much from the culture over there that it made me sad to think that, gosh, I had been working for 20 years nonstop, like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And I never stopped to smell the roses, so to speak, to use the old cliche, right? So for me, it's kind of sad because, yeah, I went over there and it was amazing. And I had an amazing time, and it was just great to get away, and it was a first class trip, and it's always unique, I think, when you go anywhere whether it be overseas or in America, it's always unique when you go and you're able to stay with somebody you know.
Right.
And so, these guys that we know over there, they really know their way around town, so to speak. And so that was a lot of fun. And but I really wish I would have done that when I was younger. You know, and so that's for me, it really pains me because I could have done that when I was in my 20s. I could have done that when I was in my 30s, and I didn't do it. Now, I'm not saying that, you just go and, take off, if you got a great job, you just quit your job and travel and whatever. But I do think that it's important to get out and experience other cultures. I have a son who's 19. He's just getting ready to wrap up high school, and I'm trying to get him to go over and maybe just backpack through Europe for 6 months or something. I think that's a great experience, and I think, people should do that. And I had opportunities to do that when I was younger, but I was so focused on making money that I didn't want to interrupt that. And so that's what I did. It's a regret that I have in my life that I didn't, enjoy things more, but I'm correcting that mistake.
You're here now.
Yeah.
And you have, Mike's, we've gone out together, we hang out at different places. We were, just like it was your first overseas trip, it was also my first overseas trip. So it was a learning, when people ask me about it, I tell them it was a learning experience.
Oh, yeah.
Like the whole time I was there, I was just soaking stuff in.
Right.
And, it is regretful because I know where you're coming from. I had opportunities when I was younger too to go, but I always blew it off. For me, it was I wanted my rock band to be successful. So it's like, oh no, I got gigs or I gotta play. I don't have time, But doing what you're doing now, right? If you could tell your like being the man that you are now, if you can go back somehow and talk to your younger self,
right?
What would you tell him?
Well, I think as a young person, this is how I would set it up. Whatever your income level is, it's not as important as living by this rule, which is you take 100% of your income. You've got 40% that's going to go to tax, okay? Whatever kind of tax that is. Income tax, state tax, sales tax, personal property tax, bullshit tax, whatever it is. So you got 40% that's going to go to tax. Okay, and then you have 40% that you should set aside for investment. Now, I'm not advising you what that is because it's different for everybody, but 40% should go into an investment, and then 20% you should live off of. Okay, so that's if you do that from a very young age, you'll be a very wealthy man or woman at the end of that process. Now, I haven't found it. I've never met anybody that's found it. There is no such thing as the get rich quick thing. There really isn't. I mean, you can take examples of even people that have won the lottery and they're wiped out.
Right.
2-3 years later, they have nothing. I mean, we had a family friend that won $18 million in the lottery. And what happens is they end up, anybody does this. There's shows on this stuff, but you can go out, they go out and they buy like Elvis memorabilia, or they go out and buy like a rare seashell and dinosaur bones and shit like that. And these are all liabilities, right? They're not assets. And so to me, when you're accumulating assets, they have to be cash flowing assets, or all you're buying is a liability.
Right.
So that's how I look at everything.
Yeah. And that's to kind of turn right now real quick, because you brought him up earlier, and maybe people don't know. Mike Cernovich was also out there, who's a very well-known public figure. I know all of you watching, there's maybe one person who doesn't know who he is. But your relationship with Mike, how did that come about, and like what is it exactly? Because I know people know that you guys got the show together, and you got so how did that come about?
Well, I think there's a couple things to take away from this. First off is I think that most people, the vast majority of people, are afraid to get involved and get outside of their screen. Okay. So it's really important to, you can spend time, and I encourage people to spend time on social media and find your niche, okay, whatever that is. Now, your niche might be horseback riding, or it might be hog hunting, or, it might be, some kind of technology thing. Maybe you're into music, or maybe you're into tennis. I don't know. But there's a segment of Facebook, there's a segment of Twitter, there's a segment of Instagram for everything nowadays. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is, or how weird it is, or how mainstream it is. There's little sub segments of that too.
Right.
I mean, in my business, real estate, there's a Facebook group for everything. There's a Facebook group for guys that like triple net lease properties, and then there's a Facebook group for guys that like restaurant triple net lease properties. So I mean, you can drill down, and then there's players and movers and shakers in each one of these things. So the term I use is niche fame, right? And so there's people that are in these niches, and you can kind of network with those people and stuff, but you have to, once you get ingrained in that community, it's really important to step outside of that, that behind that screen, and attend events, okay, and networking events. I mean, this is like old school stuff.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing new here. That's the thing. Years ago, 125 years ago, okay, when our great-grandfathers were around, they belonged to organizations like, I don't know, the Rotary or the Elks Club.
My grandpa was.
Right. Or a hunting lodge or whatever it is, right? And I don't know what the groups were back then. I mean, some guy's going to, now comment on here and say, oh, the Elks were founded in 1922.
There's also the Moose.
The Moose Lodge, right. And there's probably,
Oddfellows, all that stuff.
There's so many organizations like that, right? And those have been around forever, okay? And back then, they weren't as niche as they are today, because it was harder to find people that were interested, in, side saddle riding horses, right? But, you find people that ride horses.
Right.
And so now you can really drill into it, which is nice. So, but you go out and you attend the events. I mean, that really, at the end of the day, that's what it comes to. You have to get out and meet people. And it's just like anything else. And if you're not, if you have like a weird personality, or you're a social misfit or something, you still have to push yourself, because everybody's got to learn, right? Yeah. And so you get better at it. You're going to go to an event, and maybe it's awkward, but you'll get through it. You're not going to die, and there's going to be people there automatically that already have the same interest as you, right? I mean, if you're into playing pickleball, I mean, that's like a popular thing now here in Napa Valley.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know what it is.
I don't either.
I hear it, and so there's people that are into it, okay? So you can show up at an event, you're going to feel weird, but at least everybody there likes pickleball, right? And so you got something to talk about. Okay. And so you have to attend these events. And so I think that's a really important takeaway. And so, the thing with Mike and I is, Mike and I, in a lot of ways, are similar. We're different, but we're similar. If you strip away, like the story, our story arcs, there's a lot of similarity. I mean, we both grew up in the Midwest, actually relatively close to each other. He was outside of St. Louis. I lived in St. Louis. We're about the same age, and he had a lot of success through his career. I've had a lot of success through my career, but we've both had a lot of heartaches and pains too. Yeah. And so, and just sometimes you click with people. And so, we relate to each other in different ways. I mean, I don't approach, people like Mike or like anybody else that has influence, or people that have wealth or whatever, as wanting to get something out of them. I mean, for me, I'm at a different place in my life. I mean, maybe if I would have met Mike 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been friends, but he's not looking to get anything from me, and I'm not looking to get anything from him. So I think that's a big part of it. And people can sense that, like if you're wanting, you're too desperate or thirsty, as they say today. There's nothing that Mike, that I want from him, like to extract from him. And I don't feel there's anything he was trying to extract from me. We're friends. Yeah. And so that's the thing, is you got to go into this stuff and just look at it as, hey, can I connect with people? And some people you'll connect with, and some you don't. And so that's it. But you put yourself out there, attend an event. Mike and I ended up going, I went to a dinner thing with Mike.
That's what you and I met at an event.
Yeah, and you and I met at one too.
Right, and it was Mike's. We were at the VIP. I'd gone to the VIP thing because same type of thing, I was interested in him. I think we're only a couple months apart in age, so it's like contemporaries, talking about the same stuff.
Right.
And and that was where we met.
Yeah, it's important to put yourself out there. I mean,
Yeah.
you're always going to feel a little weird or awkward or whatever if you meet new people, and you might be intimidated, you might not, but you might be like, I'm going to say something weird or whatever.
Yeah.
But most people don't care anyway, and they feel the same way. So you just get out there and you put yourself out there and attend live events, whether those be dinner parties or the cigar things or the thing we went to in Romania. There were 70, 80 guys there. I don't know.
Yeah, it was somewhere around that.
Yeah, and so that was a thing. You can check out Bobby's Twitter feed and find information on how to get into the war room. That's what that event or that group was.
Yeah.
It's guys that are into like cryptocurrency and getting physically fit and building an iron mindset.
Trading. Yeah, all that stuff, man. They
got some cool stuff, and so that's just there's a bunch of different interests there, chess even.
Yeah.
And so,
Andrew's, it's pretty unique. It's pretty impressive what he's put together, man. I tell people that all the time because Andrew is a friend of ours, and I tell him all the time that I'm impressed with what he does.
Yeah.
I think it's good to give attaboys. People like hearing them. It makes them feel good. And it's encouraging. And one of the things I wanted to point out to you guys real quick that Mike brought up about going out is he said that, you may feel awkward at first, but you keep going and you get better at it. That's what we're always talking about when we say you can practice everything. Okay? So no matter what it is, if you want to practice situational awareness, if you want to practice your posture, if you want to practice social events and communicating with people, the more you do it, the better you'll get. I'm glad
and
you
there's
brought
a lot
that
of
up.
resources out there. I mean, you can. There's lots and lots of books out there about how to win friends and influence people, which is like a old time standard. Everybody should read that. It teaches you how to talk to people and how not to be a jackass and whatever. It's not necessarily to manipulate people. It's just how to be a nice guy.
Yeah.
And putting other people ahead of yourself. I mean, that's a big part of it. So, but yeah, just getting out there and attending events. You never know where they're going to lead. You never know who you're going to meet. I mean, I saw you attended an event and you met Zuby, the music guy, right?
Right.
And so there's a great example. You just meet all these interesting people that you're not going to meet otherwise, right?
Well, Zuby was. So I was on his podcast. I was number 7 on his podcast when he first started it up, and we talked, and I had always said, man, if we're ever by each other, let's meet up. And he happened to be in San Francisco, and I had to go. You know, it was like, oh, come on, that's my shot right now. Halfway around the world. He came that far, I can at least go to Frisco.
Yeah, and there's stuff like this all over.
Right.
I mean, there's events like this. You can just start getting into searching that stuff. I mean, I was in Las Vegas not too long ago, and they had an event there with I don't know, some guys like from baseball. They had like Pete Rose there and some other like, baseball legends and stuff. And they were doing an event like at a, I don't know, like a nostalgia shop or something. Well, and so you can show up and you can meet these people.
Well, you do events.
Yeah.
Like Mike hosted an event for me. I mean, he's, so he knows what he's talking about. I mean, you doing yourself.
I mean, I got so much out of the events that I went to at the last part of 2018 that I threw 5 or 6 events throughout 2019 just because they were so much fun. To do, and you meet some great people, and it makes for a fun weekend. And you don't make any money. At least I didn't make any money doing it. But you get a lot out of it. You get a lot out of it. You know what I mean? And so that's what I really enjoyed about it. And so I wasn't, I would have to make a lot of money off of it to move the needle for me, but as far as socially, it did move the needle a lot. So money's not always a consideration for that kind of stuff.
Right. So as far as what you're doing today, like who is the Mike of today, and besides your traveling the world and going to parties and doing whatever, what else does Mike Bolen have going?
Well, one of the interesting things, and that's what's kind of cool, is we're here in my facility. So I bought a facility down at the Napa Valley Airport. It's like a warehouse kind of thing, or airport hangar. Yeah, and I do throw some events here. And so, but one of the things I do is I run my Airbnb operation out of this facility. So, I've got like commercial washer and dryers, I've got stock and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's a really cool side of the business that I really, really, really enjoy. You meet some interesting people, and the cash flow out of the business is awesome. And so I'm all about the cash flow,
Yeah.
and I love, acquiring the assets. And so one of the problems I think that as over this years I've started getting more involved with social media, one of the issues that I've had is getting almost overrun in direct messages and emails and phone calls of aspiring entrepreneurs, wanting to, hey, can I pick your brain? Hey, can I take you to lunch? And it's become, I mean, I'll be honest, it's kind of become a problem because I try.
Pay attention.
Yeah, what I try to do initially is I would say, oh, hey, okay, yeah, we can do lunch, and so I'd go to like 4 lunches, right? And I would have, 2 guys that were boring, men or women that were boring. And then I would have a third that was just flat out a weirdo.
Yeah.
And then the fourth would be somebody that, you enjoy talking to at least over lunch.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but it becomes a colossal waste of time. And there's so many people, and then I would start getting people asking, well, my friend Larry, he went to lunch with you, and now, you can't go to lunch with me, and so I don't know. So what I ultimately came up with after talking to people, and I got this idea actually from a mutual friend of ours, the Tate brothers, was doing a course. Okay. Yeah. So it's one of those things where I can help people out, that want to help to do some of the stuff that I do, but I can also train people to be inside my ecosystem. So to speak. So if they become successful, at least we're tied together. You know what I mean? And maybe we invest in a property later. So there is some self-serving element to it. Again, selling a course or something is not like a big financial needle mover for me. But the connections and the network and helping people become successful.
Yeah, you're getting information out there.
Right. Yeah. And then if a handful of those people become very successful and we can do business down the road, that's really what I'm after by offering a course. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm going through that process right now of building a Airbnb management course. And so it's a lot of what I do today. So my partner, Chris Young, and myself, we own Airbnb assets, and then I own some Airbnb assets, but we also manage Airbnbs for other people.
Gotcha.
And so what's really, really cool about that business versus other types of real estate stuff is it provides you with residual income.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what everybody's really after.
Yeah.
Is once you sign up a client, you're getting paid week after week, month after month, year after year.
Right.
And the retention rate is very, very high.
Yeah.
So it builds residual income, unlike other businesses. You'll see guys that say, hey, trade stocks. Well, great, but you're trading a stock, you might make $1,000, and then you've got to start over. It's Groundhog Day, right? Or wholesaling a house, right? You go out and you find a seller that's distressed, you wholesale the house. You might make 20 grand, but then you got to start the whole process over. It's freaking Groundhog Day.
Right.
And so with this business, it's one of those where I've really leaned into hard personally because the residual income and the snowball effect is so great.
So is it with the management? Does it work like per renter, or is it on like a monthly basis?
What we do is we sign a contract with a homeowner that, let's say, owns a property. So like, let's say you live in I don't know, Telluride, Colorado, okay, and you're going to start an Airbnb management business there. Then you find these people that own properties that maybe come and use them only 2 or 3 times a year, okay, and you manage their property or a portfolio of properties for them. Okay. So we'll sign a contract with a property owner, and then we handle everything.
Right.
From getting the renters in, getting them out, getting the guests in, getting them out, taking care of issues that show up on a Tuesday night and a Friday night and whatever. And then we take a percentage of the gross booking.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's how we get paid. We get a management fee, and we run everything from scoop to nuts.
Right.
We take care of everything.
Yeah.
And so that's what, it's a very, very cool business. I love it. You don't have the issue with tenants that you have in, normal long-term rentals.
Yeah.
If somebody's a pain in the ass, they're gone in 3 days
Right,
anyway.
right.
Right. So it's just a great business. So I'm really excited about it. I've never sold anything online before, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
Well, and plus you're in this unique position to where a lot of these entrepreneurs that are coming up may not have like the funds to, let's say, run ads or do this, do that, try
Right.
different type of marketing. You're in the position to where you could do all that. I
Yeah,
mean, you could throw everything behind it.
Yeah, so what's really cool about what I'm doing with this is I'm doing it with, and to back up a little bit, so what I did was about 3 or 4 years ago, I brought in a partner, and it's a childhood friend of mine.
Okay.
So, long story short is I bought a car in Chicago, and I went on to Facebook. I didn't say what kind of car it was or anything. I just go on to Facebook and say, hey, I'm buying this car in Chicago. Does anybody want to drive it out to Napa Valley? And so Chris's sister, Kelly, who I've been friends with these guys since like 5th or 6th grade, right? We grew up together. And she sends me a message and said, hey, my brother, he sold his business, and, he'd probably do it. He loves cars, as you know, and I hadn't talked to Chris in like a year or something. So I called him up, and I said, hey, man, I bought this car, and I'd love for you to drive it out to Napa Valley. And it's in Chicago. And I said, I can send you a plane ticket. I'll overnight you a credit card so you can use that for gas and whatever. He's like, well, what kind of car is it? And I said, well, it's a Maserati. He's like, done. I'll drive it out.
Yeah.
So, so Chris, he flies out of Chicago. He gets the car. He's sending me pictures as he's driving, going through like Flagstaff at 178 miles an hour.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And so he gets here, I don't know, in some insane amount of time, right?
Yeah.
So I get the car. It's in one piece. Chris ends up hanging out for a weekend, and I showed him some of the projects I was doing some house flipping and some wholesaling and stuff like that. I dropped Chris off at the airport in San Francisco, and about 15 minutes later, my phone rings. It's Chris, and he's like, what do you think about me moving out, man? Let's start a property business. We'll flip houses, whatever. I was like, well, let's do it.
Yeah, cool.
So, I was looking for a partner where I could, take a little bit of a step back, hand off some of the responsibility. So I think it was like 6 weeks later or something, Chris had moved out here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so he's been out here ever since. It's probably been 4 years now. It's been 4 years. And so Chris really runs a lot of the operations. I do stuff in-house. We have a private equity fund, so I raise capital for that. I do a lot of the strategy stuff. But Chris runs the day-to-day operations.
Just so you guys know, I've met Chris. We've hung out a few times as a group. We've hung out a few times. Chris is a real one. You guys know I got that bullshit detector going and can kind of feel people out. Chris is a real one that's got the same kind of thing going.
Oh yeah, he'll just tell you how it is. I mean, that's the great thing about Chris spent 20 years in the repossession business, repo and cars. So he owned an
breaking
account.
into people's cars.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I mean, he's a hard hitter, and he does really well with running projects and getting stuff going. So. So that's been a great arrangement for me. It's been a great arrangement for him. But we've both decided to lean in really hard on this Airbnb business, and we really like it a lot. It's one of the reasons why I have the facility here, because I can run, like 50 units out of this facility, maybe more.
Yeah, you throw another rack in.
And so it's a great business, and so I mean, if anybody wants to check that out, you just go to my website, which is mikebolen.com.
And we'll have everything down in the description. Everything will be in the description. If you guys don't look, start looking in that description. Where it says
that's
more.
A good place to go.
Yeah,
there's always the little notes and stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
I love that.
I know people skip over that shit though.
Too. I love that on like podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff like that. I mean, people talk about like certain obscure products, or obscure software or something. I'm like, what? You mean there's like a software that does that for Twitter or whatever,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And I'm like, what was it? You know, I didn't really understand the name, or it's hard to spell.
Right.
You know, and so, but you look in the notes and you're like, there it is. So yeah, there's always a treasure trove in there.
Yeah.
I actually think of it as like a treasure chest. Like you open it up and boom, there's all this cool stuff in the comments, or the show notes, as they call them.
Right. No, that's where you find all the info. Only because you have this background with the investing and with really wanting your money to make money.
Right.
What do you think of Bitcoin?
Well, I don't really look at it as an investment vehicle, but what I look at it as is it's a revolution. So I see it in maybe a more zoomed out sense. I think Bitcoin is going to change the way that the world operates.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I think you're starting to see little pieces of that now.
Yeah.
Where you can, you know, if you have $20 million in cash and you want to move that to another country from the United States, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But if you want to move Bitcoin, there's nothing to move.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just there.
Right.
And so the way that it allows you to cross over borders
Yeah.
with money
Yeah.
is very interesting. And I think there's this concept of very wealthy people, or even moderately wealthy people, banding together and pooling their Bitcoin. So let's say you have 200 people worth $5 million each.
Right.
Okay. And they go and they get a representative, and they have, they go to a country like, let's say, Haiti, that's struggling, but is in a great location.
Right.
And they say, hey, Haiti, if you set aside, 2,000 acres for us, all of us will move there, and we'll set up a colony, if you will. You give us special tax breaks for X number of years, and all of a sudden you have parts of the population that can negotiate to move to a certain country, all with their assets all at one time.
Right.
So I think, to me, that's fascinating, because you've never, in the human history, you've never been able to do that.
Right.
I mean, unless you're like, you get your gold and you put it on a stagecoach or whatever, and you move it, right? But this is different. So the ability to be able to do that, and I know that sounds so far out, but stuff like that is going to happen. And so that's where I see, and it's going to make it, and governments are going to have a very, very, very hard time with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin liberates people from the government and from taxation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ramifications with Bitcoin that, everybody's looking at it as like, hey, you can trade it, or, it's kind of like this weird thing, and you could move money around, you know, and I could pay a friend over here, and it doesn't cost me anything other than like a penny or something. But the social ramifications of it are what really interests me.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I mean, there's so many talking heads on it too. I know Mike Cernovich has talked about it, but it is, to me as well, fascinating that I can have. I mean, even here in the States, it's hard to move just money around anytime you want. Like to where, I mean, they've made it easier with some of these apps, like, you can pay so and so, or you can pay, what is it, Zelle, and there's a Venmo or something. But the fact that of how I guess secure is what is
the
what I'm
anonymous
looking for.
aspect of Bitcoin, and the fact that you can purchase Bitcoin anonymously or other crypto and move that money around the world instantly. Now, obviously, it's rife with issues of, human trafficking and gun running and drugs and things like that. But all that stuff, if it allows you to transact in that stuff, imagine what it can do in legitimate businesses.
Right. Well, not only that, but all that stuff's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
So slavery and bad people doing bad things, that's an ancient story.
You're right.
I mean, so regardless of whether Bitcoin was in the picture or not, it was going to happen. You were talking about how you have this real estate, the Airbnb course that you were going to put together. Do you have a time frame on that so that people know, like, hey, it's going to be out around here? Or
Yeah, I mean, we're going to release it before, probably before the end of 2019.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, it'll be out like really quick.
So is it already done?
Yeah, and so
Okay.
yeah, we talked about this a little bit. I mean, I'm finishing up like the course recording and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm putting some real money into it. So I'm going to invest money into it. I hired, just high-end ad people. I hired high-end, copyright people and people that can really help me get the product out there.
Right.
Because, if I'm going to do something, I really want to lean into it. And so in this case, I really like the idea of being able to build an ecosystem of people that are doing what I'm doing and making money together.
Would you say that that's really the way that you do make money, is by working with other people? I mean, because there comes this point, like it came for me not too long ago, to where I was at like kind of a limit. Like there was only so many things that I could do effectively, to where things started becoming ineffective, right? And it was like, I got to hire someone to do this or to do that.
You got to bring on the contractors, or you got to bring on the employees, or you got to bring on the virtual assistants, or whatever it is. I mean, everyone needs help. Doing that and scaling, as people like to say. But, if you're going to scale your business, you have to be able to let go of certain aspects of it. You just can't grow a business without it.
Right.
And that's why you see some people that are really well known, but they have a hard time making a lot of money with that fame, right?
Yeah.
And so you have these people that get their 50.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you get and so it's hard because you have to set aside your ego and allow somebody else to do stuff. You have to be able to understand that I'm going to hire somebody to build this website for me. It's not going to be as good as if I built it myself. But it's going to be good enough. And I'm going to run these ads on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and they're not going to be done as well as I could do it, right? Or I'm going to build an airplane, and I'm an airplane mechanic, but that airplane's just not, the rivets aren't going to be quite as perfect as if I did it myself. Right.
Yeah, you just have that feeling, yeah.
But you have to be able to do that. I mean, I'm blessed in that many years ago, early in my career, I owned IHOP pancake restaurants.
Okay.
And so I feel blessed that I did that as a very young man.
Cool. Wow, cool.
Because it did teach me those simple laws of business, that on a Sunday morning at an IHOP with 75 people waiting outside an entire restaurant full, you cannot do it yourself.
Right.
You have to have people there to help you. And so it taught me how to build a team, it taught me how to interact with people, and it taught me that lesson that you have to have help. If you want to scale up your business, you got to have help.
Yeah.
There's only so much that one person can do, no matter how dedicated you are. And eventually you'll burn out if you try to do all of it, which I've tried.
Yeah. So as far as the future for you, like let's say next 5-10 years, what do you see yourself doing?
I'll probably end up buying some houses for myself in other areas, so I can spend some time in other areas. I've always wanted to live in Los Angeles. I've always wanted to get into acting. And so, but that's never been a reality for me, because I was chasing money, and I think I got caught up in, I lived in St. Louis, Missouri, and the thought of moving to Hollywood and trying to get into the movies was so foreign to me.
Yeah, right.
Now, and then here I am in California now, right? But, I'll probably end up buying a house somewhere in Los Angeles at some point. I'll probably buy a house in New York. I really like New York City. And probably something overseas as well.
Yeah.
So I'd say over the next 5 years, I'll see myself expanding my personal horizons a little bit, continuing to build my real estate business, because I've always had a passion for it and love real estate, and continue to bring people onto the team that can run that and take over, portions of the business, and make a lot of money for themselves in the process. But I'll probably pursue in some ways, some form of acting, at least to try it.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about that privately, and it's funny because I have family that's in the industry still, right? And when you were talking earlier about how you and Mike don't want anything from each other, there's like a mutual respect where you're not trying to get something from each other. That is not Hollywood. Like that is, you know, I mean, everybody's trying to like work an angle, and that was that. But that taught me from a young age, seeing it. It helped me when I dealt with other people that were like maybe wealthy or maybe because I knew how to act. Like everybody was always asking them for something, or everybody was always just like, and it wouldn't be long before it was like, oh well, hey, do you think you can get me into, you know? And it was like, okay, there it is, you know, like so it taught me to where it's like, hey, you know, even if the dude's worth, you know, a few $100 million or whatever, you could still pick up lunch. Like you could still, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it's just like expected, like, oh, he's got it, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that's always been one for me to where it's like I wasn't taught like that. Like it was, you know, you kind of carry your own. You should be wanting to pay your way. But the industry, right? What do you see, like when you say you want to act and do different stuff like that, what kind of characters do you see yourself? Like, can you see yourself
You know, it's interesting. I've actually thought a lot about this. And if I could wave a magic wand, what I would want is to live in Malibu, okay, in a beautiful house in Malibu, spend some time on the beach, and then maybe once or twice a month, go in and be a regular on a show like CSI, but not a main character. I want to be like the guy that's in the lab, who's like the funny guy in the lab, and I walk up and I say, there's bad news. Yeah. We got the test results back. And then I hand them the thing and they look at it and they say, oh, that is bad. And I say, you're right. And then I'm done. Right. Okay. And then I get like my $6,000 or whatever they get paid. Yeah. And then I just hang out and, you know, look at the young starlets on set and eat their bagels and stuff like that. And then, you know, I got friends in the business, but I'm not totally in the business, but enough where I can say, yeah, I'm on that show over there. Right. You know what I mean? But I don't have to like really go in and work every day, all day. Yeah, because some of them are working hours. I mean, it's not as easy as people think it is. You know, when I go out nowadays, people do confuse me with Brad Pitt. But I'll tell you, that I don't want to work like Brad Pitt. I just want to work a little part, but be a regular part. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I would really enjoy. And then that would give me time to like hang out at the coffee shop and enjoy the weather and enjoy, you know, just being there and whatever. My son's probably going to end up, my middle son's trying to go to school in Los Angeles, so he's probably going to end up there. Oh, so that'll be perfect. Yeah. So, you know, I think, it's all good. I don't know. Yeah. Life's good, man. So I'm just trying to figure out the best way to enjoy the time that I have. No, that's awesome, man. Yeah. And you know, we're getting near the end. We're going to close out, but Mike, just knowing Mike, he's someone that could totally act and do that type of stuff. I mean, he's always. I mean, I've heard other people say this about you. You know, when we've talked about you behind your back, but he's always it's like the life of the party almost. Like Mike, he's very jovial. He likes to laugh and talk with people. He's outgoing. You know, it's fun having him around. I totally love hanging out with Mike, and I can see him only from knowing Los Angeles like I do, and like that kind of. I could totally just see you fitting right in there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll close out, but I want to ask you, and this is something that you told me I should ask. Okay. So now I'm going to hit you with it. Who do you think I should have on my show? You know, I think that if you could get him, it would be really interesting because I think that you do have a connection or a way to do it. I would try to get Jordan Peterson on your show. That would be really interesting. Yeah. You know, I actually believe it's so funny that you say that because I actually I found his management who represents him, and I sent a letter along with a description of my YouTube channel and all that stuff. Sure. And I've actually already asked. I never heard back, but I did. Well, we have a mutual friend that knows his daughter, and so you know maybe that could happen. Yeah. You know, I think that Jordan Peterson would be a fascinating interview. I also think that Alex Jones would be a really interesting interview.
Oh yeah.
I think both of those people would be really, really fascinating to talk to, and maybe go at it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Which is, both those guys have, they're known for a certain thing, but for me personally, I always find it interesting to get behind them
to see
and
who they
find
are.
out, what is your whole business behind this?
Yeah.
Like Alex Jones, how do you make money? How do you do that? Like, how did you set all this up? How did this happen? People don't always ask those questions, and I think that kind of stuff's really interesting. Jordan Peterson, how did you get to the point where you are today? Instead of, what's your philosophy on this or that or whatever, that's been asked in 20 other interviews, but how did you get here? How did you become so well known?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff to me is fascinating, like kind of behind the scenes, how did they get there? I don't know. I'm kind of a junkie for those shows on VH1, where they show Motley Crue and how they became Motley Crue. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I'm always fascinated
stories,
by those origin stories.
Yeah. Right.
So that kind of stuff's interesting to me. Like, how did you get here? Like, what was your story arc that brought you to this point in time? How did you get there?
Well, for those that are watching that heard those suggestions that maybe have ties as well, let's make it happen.
Yeah, make that happen. Those would be two really interesting interviews.
That would be awesome. Mike, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, you bet, man.
This is
thanks
always,
for coming by my place.
It's always, but thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure talking with Mike and hanging out with him. And thank you for joining us. And make sure you look down in the comments. You can see where to find Mike. You could, read what I got to write about him. But until next time, stay safe out there.
Cheers.